first annual and hopefully the first of many Footstock events. This is probably a groundbreaking event, invitation only. So if you're here, I mean, you're pretty well thought of by at least the folks that are here. So, gotta be a good thing. So, you know, this is excellent. We want to thank everybody. We want to thank Russell and Michelle. Come on, guys. That was great. And of course now, Kenny is over there slaving away, getting tomorrow's dinner ready. He's got the briskets going. So, you know, we just can't thank you guys enough. I mean, we got the Southeast Texas Bigfoot Conference. That was huge. Probably, I do events all over the United States. And I have to say that was one of the better events I've ever done.
Yeah, it was.
A lot of people through the door, a lot of friendly faces, well put together. I mean, you guys went out of your way to make sure that the speakers and stuff were well taken care of. And it was class.
Great feedback.
So tonight I wanted to talk to y'all a little bit. For lack of a better term, I'm an expert woodsman. I was raised, my father took me out into the woods when I was 6 months old, put me in his hunting sack, wrapped in a blanket, took a bottle of milk to feed me. He started taking me hunting and fishing that early. My father is Native American.
Sounds like you were baked.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I mean, come on, as big as I am, you gotta imagine, at 6 months old, I weighed like 14, 16 pounds. So I was good baked, you know, probably a little stinky too, just saying. But, you know, I've learned a lot over the years, and as I have spent time with different researchers and different people and groups out in the woods, I've come to realize that 99% of people that call themselves a Bigfoot researcher know nothing whatsoever about the woods. They know nothing whatsoever about the flora and the fauna that are native and natural to our woods, and the noises they make, the sounds. Many people don't know that a fox can make over 120 vocalizations. A fox. And if you don't know every single one of those vocalizations, how can you ever say that, oh, I heard a Bigfoot, I heard a Sasquatch, I heard one. Coyotes make a huge number of vocalizations. Buzzards will actually yell. A lot of people's never witnessed that, but if you've ever sat up on a buzzard's nest, because it was close to your deer stand, you've heard these vocalizations and you come to realize, I don't know near as much about the sounds that are going on, so I made it a quest of mine to learn the sounds of just about every native animal in Texas, in Louisiana, and on and on. And for the past 20 plus years, I have studied these animals and the sounds that they make. Deer make a huge number of sounds. And you learn what those sounds are. Certain sounds are breeding sounds. Certain sounds are feeding sounds. Certain sounds are, I'm mad. Certain sounds are, I want to fight. Certain sounds are just, I'm just making a sound. But if you don't know the sounds that, say, feral hogs make, it's hard to go out and say, well, I heard a Sasquatch, I heard a Bigfoot, I've got it on my recorder. I get sent probably 75 to 100 files a week to identify, you know, somebody says, oh, I got this Bigfoot, it's got to be a Bigfoot, what is it? And I'm like, it's a red wolf. Well, we don't have red wolves in Texas. Yes, we do. They're supposed to be extinct, but in the past 2 years, Chester Moore and myself have gotten over 8 pictures, confirmed pictures of red wolves back in the state of Texas. So we do have wolves in the state of Texas. So whenever people say, I've got a certain sound and I know it's a Bigfoot, research it first. As professionals, most of us as professionals, now we may not be making a living doing Bigfoot stuff, but now we're not novices at this stuff. Sometimes it only takes a few minutes, because I'll give you a good example. one of the TV shows I was on last year, I don't want to mention any names in that matter, but he and Cliff Bergman and Renee had went down into one part of the Trinity River bottom, and Bobo and myself had went to another. And whenever we met back up later that night, Renee said, Jeff, Matt thinks that we got a recording of a Bigfoot down here in this river bottom. And she said, I don't think it's Bigfoot. I said, okay. She said, you're good at, I do a lot of calls with my own voice. And she said, can you tell us what a feral hog sounds like? Some of their noises, some of the sounds like that. And so, of course, I do a couple of just the simple. And then, and she's like, yeah, that's what we heard. And Moneymaker's still arguing with me that he heard Bigfoot. It was a Squatch. So, we make ourselves look bad sometimes. If we are so blinded to the fact that we are so passionate about what we do, that we're willing to say without any good investigative knowledge that something, without a doubt, is a Bigfoot. There's always doubt. You can never say without a doubt anything is a Bigfoot until we have one laying on this table right here. Unless we have one in a cage or on this table or something that we can touch it, we can poke it, prod it, examine it, do blood tests, whatever. You can't say anything is without a doubt a Squatch. No sound, no anything. Even a hair sample or a blood sample, because we have nothing to compare it to. Even if we get a blood sample and they do DNA testing on it, and it comes back and they say, well, it's an unknown primate. We still can't say it's Bigfoot. Unknown primate is just that, unknown primate. It more than likely will say, yes, that's probably Bigfoot. And 90%, it probably is, but there's still that 10% chance that we can't say definitively it's a Bigfoot. So when we're out in the woods as researchers, we have got to hold ourselves to a higher degree of professionalism than we hold anyone else. We have got to debunk our own evidence 99.99% of the time. We can't throw something. There's so many times. I was involved in the DNA study from a few years ago, and everything was going really fine. I represented the toenail of Bigfoot from Arizona and a couple of other samples that we had in the study. And I was also friends with Justin Smayhoff, who is a moron, but that's beside the point. We had all these samples and everything was going really good, and then we start getting reports, because as being members of the sample of the study, we got reports as things were being done that the public didn't get. And I start questioning things. I'm like, hold up. We're going off into left field here. I'm getting DNA. I had to teach myself how to understand DNA, because I'm a farm boy from East Texas. I didn't know jack nothing about DNA. So I'm studying about this DNA, and then I'm looking on here, and I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me that there's markers on this sample from a lemur in Nacogdoches, Texas. A lemur in Nacogdoches, Texas. And not only that, but you're trying to tell me that this lemur is 7 feet tall and weighs 800 pounds. And I'm going, that's even harder to believe than Bigfoot. you know what I'm saying? I've been face to face and eyeball to eyeball with a creature that is not supposed to be in my woods twice in my lifetime. A lot of years apart, but twice. When I say face to face, one time was less than 20 feet, the other time was less than 5 feet. So I know for a fact these things exist. Fact to me. Maybe not to anybody else, but fact to me, because I was there. I mean, face to face. So when these people start telling me this, and when I looked into that face, there was not a face of a monkey. This was not the face of a lemur. This was not the face of a gorilla or anything like this. This was the face of another human being. If you've ever seen an Australian Aboriginal in the face, like some of your old TV shows, that's exactly what this creature looked like in the face. An Australian Aboriginal. Huge, pronounced lips, but within human parameters. A flat, broad nose with large nostrils, but not distorted like some of the reports you hear and stuff that make it apish. Forehead, color of skin was like mahogany. And it was shiny like patent leather, like oil. It was really oily looking. But yet you could see the sun-dried cracks along the eyes, the crow's feet, and the mouth, and things like that. The fur hung from it like dreadlocks because it had been walling in mud. This is summertime in East Texas. So mosquitoes, deer flies, things like a horsefly, they was biting. So everything was in the mud in East Texas to get rid of mosquitoes and stuff like that. But its fur was finer fur. It wasn't a big, thick, hairy thing. Because think about this. In East Texas, does it make sense for anyone to say they saw a Bigfoot that was totally covered in thick fur? In thick fur. December, we're wearing short sleeve shirts around here. I kill coyotes and things like that in the middle of winter, except maybe February, late January, early February, it gets cold. But in December, November, October, I'm shooting animals that still have summer coats, real thin, sparse hair, no thick, no undercoat, things like that. So why would a 7 foot, 8 foot tall, 800 to 1,000 pound creature have a 4-inch thick fur coat on 24/7, 12 months out of the year? Couldn't survive. It would die in 120 degree heat in East Texas. So what I saw had a thin, sparse layer of fur. The fur was matted together. Its skin was the color, like I said, all I can say is like mahogany brown. The mud on its torso and stuff made it look gray, almost white. Because anybody that's been in the Sabine River bottom, you know that once that mud gets on you and dries, it turns kind of a creamy white looking color, grayish white. So that's what you saw on the body. But the face and the neck up was that mahogany brown, shiny, furry, very sparse fur around the face. When it looked up at me, its teeth, I could see its teeth, and they weren't the big blocky teeth that you hear on so many of the popular TV shows and stuff. They weren't big and blocky. They were no different than mine or yours from what they looked to me. Very yellow, very haphazard looking in the mouth. They weren't like braces, perfectly straight looking teeth. They looked like you would figure a creature that's just living out there in the wild, that's had all the mishaps and accidents of a creature of that age and everything, teeth rotting and falling out or whatever. I didn't see any missing teeth, but I'm just saying the overall teeth that I saw probably fit a person of maybe 25 to 30 years old who had never brushed their teeth in their life. Kind of teeth. It looked at me, and its eyes, the thing is, you see a lot of people that show these eyes that are black doll's eyes. No, not at all. These eyes were just like mine and yours. These eyes had a white sclera. It was slightly yellow, looked a little jaundiced. The whites were there, but they were just a little yellow. The eyes were brown. They were just like looking into a brown-eyed human being's eyes. No difference in size. They were not huge or small or anything like that. Literally, had I not known what I was looking at, I would have swore that somebody was playing a joke on me. It was another person that was trying to play a joke on me. Because I've seen lots of people that have a similar, for lack of a better term, prehistoric look to it. That early man look. Now, it did not disappear. It did not go invisible. It did not create a portal and walk through it. No demons popped out of anywhere and escorted it or me or anything else. So there was no LSD involved. But it ran away. And that brings me to another. These people that say like the Bigfoot can go invisible, which no hair-covered animal in the animal kingdom has that ability. So there's no precedent for anything to be able to. We have cuttlefish and things like that, and we have chameleons that can not go invisible, but they can camouflage, but they're all skin, no hair. So nothing with hair can go invisible. So whenever they say, you know, why wouldn't this thing have went invisible? I had a loaded .357 Magnum lever-action rifle over my shoulder. If it lives in the woods near my place, it knows what hunters are. It knows what guns are, because it's probably witnessed, you know, 100 hunters a year going into those woods, shooting deer and hogs and squirrels and everything else. So if it could have went invisible, why would it not have went invisible instead of running away? If it could have created a portal and magically stepped through into another plane of existence, I mean, I could have put 5 shots in it before it could have ran away. But I never want to kill one, personally. I mean, honestly, I'm always got that fear that what if you shoot? What if I shoot? And I'm like, man, I'm rich. I just killed the first one. I'm going to prove to everybody, and I drag it back. And somebody says, yeah, we did some DNA on him. Yeah, that was that guy that's been missing since 1968. Yeah, he went missing in that river bottom, and we didn't think we was ever going to find him. You just killed him. How about 20 to life? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that goes through my head. I mean, it's making a joke about it, but I mean, that does go through my head because what I saw looked so human-like. If I would saw something that looked like a monkey, probably wouldn't have near the problem shooting it or bringing a specimen in as I have whenever I've laid my eyes on them and they look human. To an extent. I don't mean they look just like me and you, but you got to think about this. Me and you don't look alike. We got 2 eyes, a nose. You know, your nose doesn't look like mine. Doesn't look like his or his. So there can be a variation in how these things look from region to region, from place to place, cold climates versus hot climates. But I don't think you're going to have a creature that is an 8-foot tall gorilla in the Pacific Northwest and a 6-foot, 2-inch Aboriginal in Texas. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm just posing things for everybody to think about. But you know, what do you guys think? I mean, I always do like to let people just tell me stuff, ask me stuff or whatever when I'm on stage talking. And y'all are all my peers, so who would I better want to hear something from than anybody? Ask me something or tell me something? Yeah.
So I know you've shared about this a number of times. Can you clarify, whenever the creature seemed to be taking off or running away, you saw this happen from the back end, so you see this heading out. Can you describe its locomotion, how it moved, its mechanical nature as far as how it moved its body, legs, upper body, things like that as it ran off?
It ran off very animal-like, all fours to begin with. And as it ran, which of course now I'm talking about a total of like 2.5, 3 seconds, it took this thing to leave and be gone, but I watched it take off. And it never got, for a creature that I would estimate, just from it looking there, was as big as I was, as far as height, at least 6 foot tall. But probably in the maybe 200-pound range. It was not big like me. It hadn't had as much bones as I've had. So, you know, it takes off running and it's low to the ground, and it used its arms as much as it did its legs to reach out and grab and pull. So when it ran, it didn't run like a track star, you know, just taking off down low and doing this. It was actually reaching out like this and pulling with its hands as much as it was running on its feet. What else?
Did I hear correctly? You said you thought it was around 200 pounds?
Yeah. Yeah, probably just an estimation because it was squatted down, so it's really hard to, it could have been, 245, I could be off 50
Right,
or
but
so
you're
pounds.
still at the higher end of just normal human proportion.
Right.
Okay.
Both creatures that I've been face to face with in my lifetime were no larger than human proportions. And the reason I say this here brings up another interesting thing is I did a research paper and a study on this. When people say they've seen a 15-foot tall, 12-foot tall, 10-foot tall Bigfoot that weighed 1,500 pounds, it could not live in the United States of America. There's no ecosystem in the United States that could support a family group of that size. A single creature of that size would have to eat 90 pounds of food a day in order to maintain that body weight, whether it's grass, whether it's vegetation, whatever it is. One creature, just like her, people say, oh, the horses do it. I can drive by any pasture in East Texas and see a horse grazing all day long. You have to compare it to the grizzly bear and the mountain gorilla, the two animals that we have on this planet that are anywhere close to what we compare the size of a Bigfoot to. A mountain gorilla, about 500 pounds, eats 60 pounds of vegetation a day in order to maintain its size. It spends about 20 hours of its day either sleeping or eating, one of the two. A grizzly, which hibernates half the year, eats 90 pounds of food a day whenever it's not hibernating in order to get its body bulk up for the hibernation, things like that. So you take those and kind of get in the middle there with a Bigfoot. So I discount the 12-foot tall, 15-foot tall stories. I just really can't, you can't go there because we can't feed something like that. But you give them human parameters. Now, human beings, we're talking, we've got NBA players that are almost 8 feet tall. Over 7 feet, well over 7 feet, over 400 pounds. So it's not the unusual to have a 7+ foot tall human being. And a human being at 7 foot tall can survive on 2.5 pounds of food a day. 2.5 pounds. If that's high protein, high fat foods, say like a hog, kill a wild hog. If Bigfoot creatures had a specialized bacteria in their gut, like some animals do, they're able to eat rancid meats. So they could kill one hog or one deer, drag it back into the thicket, and feed on it until basically it turned to mush. And they could come out and get another. They would not have to be out in the visible realm of our woods and our things 24/7 looking for something to eat. A 300-pound hog would feed a family group of creatures that only needed 2 to 4 pounds of food a day to survive for quite a long time. A couple of weeks they could live on, especially in colder months. So if you do the mathematics, the 15-foot tall, the real upper end of the stories you hear, you really think about that. If you had creatures, as many creatures, especially as people want you to think are out there, and they were that size, how easy would it be for us to find them?
It never would have been a question.
Never would have been a question. But you give them human size, because you can disappear in the woods. You can disappear. You can disappear. You can walk out there and take 10 steps out through that, those yopons right out there, and I can't see you anymore. You don't have to be a magician. You don't have to be able to disappear. You don't have to be able to get invisible or do any of that. All you've got to do is know how to use your vegetation, use your terrain, and use shadows in order to disappear. So you give a Bigfoot creature more human-like intelligence. And you think about this. You take a creature that never had to learn mathematics, never had to learn English, history, or any of that. Every bit of their intelligence, they're just as smart as we are, every bit of their intelligence was in how do I hide, how do I eat, how do I evade, how do I live somewhere where I cannot be detected and found. So instead of all the knowledge we have in our heads, useless knowledge, because how much useless knowledge do we really pack into our heads? Does anyone really care how many hot dogs some guy in New Jersey could eat? But we all watch the TV shows and stuff where he's packing in the hot dogs and stuff. Useless knowledge. These guys are putting everyday knowledge in there. They can see better than us, they can hear better than us, they can smell better than us. And they're just as smart as we are, but that knowledge has been on how to stay away from us, because they've learned throughout the years that we equal death. We have destroyed everything we've ever come in contact with as mankind. Every civilization that we have ever come in contact with, we tried to destroy it, we've tried to envelop it, we've tried to do something to it to change it, it's my nice little pet. I want to pet it, and I just boom, what did I do? Little kid with a bug. You know what I'm saying? That we as mankind have done that to everything. Animals, other tribes, you know, you name it, we've done it. So these creatures are out here going, no, I want no part of you. I want to go. I want to be away from you. So they're using their intelligence to stay away from us. So, anybody else got a question? Yes, ma'am.
Your toenail sample, are you referring to Dr. Melba Ketchum?
Yes.
Okay, just wondering.
Yes. Thank you so much for reminding me of
Yeah.
that nightmare. I was involved with the ASCRO, the Arizona Cryptozoological Society. A friend of mine is the head of that, and the late Mitch Waite was involved with that, and they had approached me with this toenail. They had used one of my traps in order to obtain a toenail, which, sad to say, Meldrum and them have used my traps in the past of drywall screws in a 2x12. Stick them up. Hey, I got Bigfoot looking through my window. Put 100 drywall screws sticking up through a piece of 2x12 and screw it down to your front porch, and anything that walks onto that front porch is leaving DNA. And they leave a lot more than that. They leave chunks of skin and toenails and everything else. So we got a toenail. And that toenail was sent to Dr. Meldrum, and non-human primate. That's all we could get was non-human primate. And then we were like, oh, well, the samples are contaminated. We had different DNA specialists that were saying your samples are contaminated. Well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter if they're contaminated or not. I'll give you a sample of my DNA. I didn't touch the thing. I wasn't there. The other two guys that were there will give you samples of their DNA. So you can, contaminated or not, my DNA is not going to say non-human primate. Their DNA, hopefully, is not going to say non-human primate. We don't, any of us work in a zoo or anything like that to where we had access to any kind of primate DNA that we could have put on this toenail. You know, so we had a lot of people that were saying, you know, it was this, that, or the other. But whenever I had my real doubts about that DNA test was whenever Justin Schneehai approached me, and we were involved in it. We did a lot of hunting forums together, and we were actually already friends on some hunting pages. And he's like, man, you're into Bigfoot, right? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm into Bigfoot. And he's like, well, I got something for you. And he starts telling this wild story about shooting the Bigfoot. And of course, my crap meters start just going off. Because this guy's already been in trouble about 30 times for poaching and different wildlife violations. So I'm like, but you know what? I'm gonna get you hooked up with people. They can tell you whatever. I'm middleman here. So I get him involved. He supposedly has a chunk of Bigfoot. Now, he tells me this story. I had a radio show back in the day called the Crypto Zoo. And he came on and he starts telling me this story. First off, my crap meter went off when he said he was bear hunting with a 25-06. Anybody that hunts knows a 25-06 is at most white-tailed deer, but it's pretty much a varmint round. It's not really something I would go after even black bear with. You know, black bear, you're talking 30-06, you're talking 7mm Magnum, you're talking something that's going to put an animal down unless you're a poacher. So he tells me he's hunting with a 25-06. He comes into this field. They're driving down the road. Comes into this field, and he sees this creature out in this field, and it's waving its arms in the air. And I said, hold up, buddy. So you tell me that you're such a stalwart human being that you see a creature walking on two legs, waving two arms at you, and you decide to shoot it. Now, where I'm from, my dad would have beat the pants off of me, because the only thing in this world that is walking on two legs and waving two arms in the air is another human being. But he says he shoots it. Okay. He gets out of the truck and he goes down there. Well, it's crawled off into the bushes and he's looking for it. Well, out of the bushes come two baby Bigfoots. Two of them. So what does he do? He shoots one of them. He kills it. So he goes into the bushes and he finds Mama Bigfoot. And what does he do? He strangles her to death with his bare hands. And my crap meter is on about level 90 at this point. Because I'm like, now wait a minute, you're holding a 25-06 in your hands and you're point blank range with an animal that you shot. You claim to be a hunter. Now I'm a hunter. I have, oh my Lord, I've killed more animals than blackleg or distemper. Rabies ain't got nothing on me. And you're going to tell me you let an animal suffer while you had a gun and you decided to strangle this animal. Have you ever tried to strangle anything? We're talking about, it doesn't take 10 seconds like on TV. We're talking, it may take as much as 2 to 3 minutes to kill something by strangling it. So Justin says he strangled it to death. Now, if that's not a psychopath, I don't know what is. But he then gets scared. Now, anybody that has not lived under a rock knows that if you have the very first Bigfoot creature that is ever going to prove that they exist, you just hit the lottery. You just became an instant millionaire, unless you were out doing something illegal to begin with. And so he takes it, he jams this body up under a tree that's down. Now, he doesn't say what he did with the little one, but this is the mama one. I guess we just forget about the little one, what the buzzards had. Yes, I don't know. He leaves. Months later, it has snowed, and he decides to come back. At this point in time, they dig down in that snow, and all they find is a patch of fur. Now, when the fur was sent to me, and I looked at it under a microscope, as anybody in this room can do, you can go online and find hair, what hair looks like under a microscope. The structure of different animals' fur. And you can look through your own microscope and you can see, and that fur matched a black bear 100%. And I said, dude, this is black bear fur. Cussed me out, told me I was full of crap, and sent his sample to my nice lady friend that was doing her DNA test. And next thing you know, she's saying it's, sure enough, it's Bigfoot. I left the study that day. I made them remove my face from their website, made them take everything down that had my name attached to it. Because I was like, something's going on here. His boots were tested later by Dr. Sykes that had the blood on it, where he spoke straight. The blood got on his boot, 100% black bear. Versus not human, not primate, but bear. So, yeah, I was involved in that fiasco. And you live and you learn. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Your father, Native American, and yourself, what was his experience with these, if he had it?
My dad was a non-believer. My dad came up at a time whenever it was worse to be Native American than it was to be black. My father grew up at a time whenever Native Americans were called red N-word. My grandmother was born on the reservation and she picked cotton for a living and made 27 cents a day. So my dad grew up and he had no experience. My dad didn't even start hunting until he was probably 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, because they worked 7 days a week. And he didn't believe. And all my stories, all my stuff, he didn't believe until we had caught on the same piece of property that I had, that I loved dearly until they came in and clear cut it. But we had went down to the river. The Sabine River goes right through my place. And we had caught about 150 pounds of catfish. blue caddis. And we had a live box. If anybody fishes, got a live box and it floats. And we tied it on there, put our fish in there. This was in the wintertime, February, pretty cold, 30s. We floated it out in the water. Dad said, well, we're tired from fishing all day. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll skin the fish and we'll have us a little fish fry. Okay, Dad, no big deal. So we leave. Next morning we show up, our fish box had about 150 pounds of fish in it, about 40 pounds of box. It is dragged completely out of the water up on the bank. The lid, which was tied with a rope, and I tied real good, probably put a, I don't know, double half hitch on it at least, you know what I'm saying? That was untied. The lid had, if anybody remembers the old chicken coops they had back in the 60s called chicken, the lid went down and it slid up underneath another piece, spring loaded like this. He pulled it back to raise it up. It had depressed that and had sat there and ate fish. Probably ate about 15 or 20 of these fish. And my dad's coming up there and my dad's going, what in the hell is going on? And there are bare, what look like human footprints. And Dad's like, it's 34 degrees out here. Who is the idiot out here in bare feet? And I'm just sitting there and I'm going, I know what this is going on. I know what's going on. My dad, he looks down at that and he's studying on it. And some of these catfish are so fresh that their mouths are still moving. You know, it takes a catfish a long time to die. And it had eaten the soft, fleshy parts and thrown the head and the bones down. Some of them you can still see where bites had been taken out of it. And Dad looks at me and he says, it's true. And I said, what's that, Dad? He said, all them crazy stories you tell are true. He said, there's nothing that could have done this but different. He said, I believe now. I've got to believe. There's no other answer to what has happened here. We were behind 3 locked gates, 1,200 acres on the Sabine River bottom, behind 3 locked gates. My family has that property. The only people that could have come in and out of there was us. Our tire tracks was the last tracks to the gates. Not my truck tire tracks. Because we paid attention to that kind of stuff. See, if we had poachers on the property, is, you know, we knew everybody's tire tracks that was supposed to be in there. So if we saw strange tracks, we were hunting who it was. But my tracks were the last ones in. All 3 gates were locked. So we're in the middle of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Sabine River bottom acres. So someone, if they would have walked in from the river, they would have had to where this exact spot was, they would have had to have parked their boat, got out and walked about a quarter mile barefooted in 30-degree weather to sit and eat raw fish. If they came in off the road, they would have had to have walked in about 1.5 miles to do the same thing, barefooted. I mean, I don't know, maybe they didn't want to get their boots muddy or something, I don't know. But whatever it was barefooted. And that was my dad's first experience with this. And my dad was with me whenever the one jumped out of the tree and almost landed on me. My daddy got cancer and he was sitting in the truck, he was sick. But we were looking for mayhaws. That's something we did every year. We went and looked for mayhaws and dried up slough beans. And so I left him sitting in the truck and I was probably 100, 150 yards from the truck. Through the woods, you couldn't see the truck. But when that happened, and so when I come back telling my dad, he was all excited, you know, because when my dad was raised up, my grandmother married my grandfather, and he was not a very good person, let's just put it like that. He was a white guy, he was a Scottish guy, and married her, and he was very, very mean, and he was one of those that, you know, don't tell anybody you're an Indian, you know. And when I say Indian, I'm talking N-D-N. We don't like to say I-N-D-I-N, Indian. We say Indian. Just a funny little thing. But he never got to enjoy his heritage at all. Because it was basically, please don't tell anybody. You can pass for white, you better pass for white kind of thing. But after that, Dad was very much into watching the shows and being my biggest fan and my biggest supporter in doing what I did. And helped me out tremendously buying equipment at times. Anybody else? Again?
I want to give you a scenario. So let's say, you know, while
Can you
these
spell that?
could potentially be all over the world, all over the country here, and in many places here in Texas as well. Let's just narrow it down to Texas. Let's say that one, if not some of these creatures, maybe a family, are found alive. They're not shot and killed, but they are confined in a specific area. And before it's made into a huge media ordeal and everything like that, the officials, whoever that would be, they come forward and they say, okay, we recognize this is happening now, but we don't know what to do, so we need to go and talk to the people who have been dealing with this for decades. So they approach, let's say, you and maybe some of our colleagues here. What would, and they, let's say they ask you, where do we go from here? Should we open a habituation site? Should we let them, should we tag them and track them and monitor their migrations or whatever is happening? What input would you give, or what suggestions would you have once we've reached that point?
I hope the government never acknowledges their existence, for one, because if they do, it means their imminent demise. Because, think about it like this. You know why any cryptid, any endangered species of that level will never be acknowledged by any state, local, or federal government entity? It will knock an economy in the head. If Black Panthers were proven to be real and it was found on you say you're Mr. Temple Inland Lumber Company, you own tens of millions of acres across East Texas, and say you've got a piece of property over here that we just found the only 2 living Black Panthers, and we don't know what they are yet. Guess what? You can't harvest timber on that land. You can't drill for oil on that land. You can't develop that land. You can't ever sell that land. You can't do anything. And they're going to come in and they're going to eminent domain that land. And now thousands of people have lost jobs. Thousands of acres are under confiscation by the government. So they're not going to ever allow these creatures to ever really and truthfully be outed by themselves. It's going to be somebody like us. It's going to be one of us that one day finds that definitive proof. And it's going to be one that you might run up on that's already dead or something like that. But if they came to me, the first thing I'd say is leave them alone. As far as government entities go, leave them alone. You want this, then you need to allow the people that have already been doing this for decades upon decades to run this. The government needs to leave it alone. The government has ruined everything it's ever touched. I mean, big pharmacy, hello, you know. Post office, when's the last time you got your package on time? You know, but it's like,
Don't get me started.
yes ma'am. So, you know, I mean, when the government went into hospitals and went into things that just created fiascos, people died. So I would want them to leave them alone and sanction people like us, give us an actual title, not just a make-believe title. You know, cryptozoologist, oh, I'm a cryptozoologist. Yay. Doesn't really mean anything in the real world. You know, I like it just because it's just fun to say. But, you know, I mean, I have a lifelong history of zoological research and things like that with big cats. And one of my first jobs I ever had was working for Barnum and Bailey Ringling Brothers, taking care of their big cats. I was 17 years old, and for a couple of years, I was the guy that took a 750-pound male tiger swimming in a pond. So I loved it. So I would tell them, leave them alone and let us, give us some funding. If you want to do anything, give us a grant. And let us form an actual foundation, a nonprofit foundation, and let us do real research on these things. We have been the ones doing the research all along. Just give us the ability to do it properly. But that won't happen. Like I said, if they do ever prove that they exist, they're going to do just exactly what you said. They're going to tag it. They're going to put a collar around it, you know, oh, we got him. They're going to put a collar around it. They're going to turn him loose, and they're going to follow it, and they're going to say, oh, look, we found some more. And they're going to go in there with tranquilizer guns, and they're going to trank them, and they're going to do, and the next thing you know, these things are in Canada. They're not stupid. They're going to get, something's fixing to happen. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask, I mean, like, I know that I would definitely feel like some government officials would feel that way, but you don't think that ecotourism would maybe even fuel the search for cryptids throughout America? I mean, I mean, what if we can form a national park or something that can bring in revenue for our economy?
But you have to weigh what they would weigh. Is it worth more for me to drill oil on this piece of property or charge $5 a head for somebody to come camp out in my park? I can get $70 a barrel for the 1 million barrels of oil, or I can get $90 a ton for the pine trees versus $5 a ticket for somebody to come camp on my place. The government is thinking like that. They're not thinking like we want them to think, like we would think. We would think, man, let's go in here and pay these people a really good sum of money for their land, give it national park status, give it a protected sanctuary status, like we have with so much waterfowl. There's places that are sanctuaries for waterfowl that we can't even go in with our boats. It's a no-wake zone because it's a nesting area and different things like this.
And we get birders from all around the world too, like a great American safari.
But the thing is,
I don't think that
all those birders combined, the money they spend would not equal the yearly budget of the smallest town in Texas.
right.
We're talking tens of thousands of dollars versus billions of dollars as far as lumber and coal and oil, shale, different things like that are under the ground that these government groups, these government controlled entities are not going to allow. What you'll end up having is some of your worst scenario moments that you see on movies where some big oil company, some old Steven Seagal movie or something, where some oil company has hired a group of professional hitmen to come in and hunt these creatures down and murder them and get them off the land before they're found to be there. Oh wait, they're not on my land. I don't know what y'all are talking about. But that would end up being a real scenario that could actually happen if you wanted to take somebody's land. Because you got to think about this. I own a company. I've got billions of dollars invested in land for timber harvest. I got a group of nut job cryptozoologists that have come in here and said, I got Bigfoot living on my land. I'm going to go out there and set fire to 10,000 acres just to prove them wrong. Because they're thinking big picture as in my bottom dollar, where we're thinking big picture as we've discovered this creature, we've got to protect it. We've got to make sure that this creature is studied and oh my gosh, what do we have? It's great. They're not going to think like that. They don't care nothing about except for what's in their wallet, period.
The nesting eagles or the beetles in California?
It's just like whenever PCBs were found to be killing off all the eagles. After that was proven to be fact, it still took them 10 years to enact legislation to get rid of PCBs. 10 years. So for 10 years, we were still poisoning bald eagles and condors. Even though all the experts said they're dying at a rate that they may not exist if we don't stop it today. But they said 10 years from now, eagles are still dying at an exponential rate from PCBs that have been passed down from mother to egg to egg to egg. Yes, sir.
You said you had two sightings. The close-up one was the one dropping from the tree. Was the other one is the spectacular?
When I was 15 years old, we owned that land. We've had that land since I was infant. With my friends and I were camped out on the Sabine River, and we had caught a whole bunch of catfish that day, and we had a hand-pumped well. And we skin our fish at that hand-pumped well, and we would leave the guts and all the entrails and everything on the ground by that well. And we'd go eat and do whatever, and then later that night we'd walk back over there with a flashlight, and if coons and different things were eating it, we'd shoot them. I made my money in high school, a lot of my extra money, by selling furs. And that was something we did back in the early 80s, And so we had ate that night, and told my buddies, come on, let's go see if there's any coons over the dead pile. I grabbed my light. If anybody remembers, I don't know if any of y'all are old enough, some of us are, flashlights in the 80s. You remember them? A 2D cell or C cell or yellow dim bulb flashlight. Boy, we had something. Now, if you was lucky, you had a big 6-volt. Had that battery, it was about that long. Couldn't afford one of them. I was a little kid. Couldn't afford one. So I had a little flashlight, a little yellow flashlight with turn it on, you know. So I'm heading over there. I got my little Marlin Papoose, you know, 22, semi-automatic 22. Couldn't hardly hit crap 30 feet away, but I had it. So I'm easing over there, and I'm shining when I see something eating at this gut pile. And I'm thinking it's either raccoons or it's a hog. And the closer I get, the bigger it looks. And I'm like, man, that ain't no raccoon. That's got to be a hog. So I was excited. I thought, shoot me a hog. You know, barbecue was about to be on. So I'm easing up to this thing, and when I get about far as from here to you, probably about 20 or so feet, this thing stands up on two legs and looks dead at me. And I'm sitting here, I got my little 22 like this, got my flashlight, and I'm like, oh crap, I can't pull the trigger, so I had to swap hands. Put the flashlight in this one, so now I got it, right? So I'm shining this thing's face. It's a human being, this is not. I mean, the closest I had seen at that time to a Bigfoot was Creature from Black Lake and Creature from Big Creek. You know, I'd watched a couple of movies at the drive-in. And this thing's looking at me, and I spoke to it. I said, mister, I don't know who you are, but I'm scared, and I'm going to shoot you. Because this had to be a human being. What else stood up on two legs? This thing just looked at me. Didn't make a noise, it just looked at me. I said, mister, you are scaring me, and I am going to kill you. Didn't say a word. And I'm pretty scared at this point, because we're behind all those locked gates. We're down there on private property. There's not supposed to be anybody. Well, but in my mind, I'm thinking somebody's playing a joke on me. Got to be a joke. This doesn't exist. This has got to be a joke. So I said a third time, mister, speak up now or I will shoot you. And at that point in time, it took 3 steps backwards, toe to heel. Now I've had people tell me, oh, you saw a bear. Bears cannot walk toe to heel. Bears, when they're on 2 legs, if they do walk backwards, they're very clumsy. This just was just like me and you. Did that right there. 3 steps backwards, it was in the edge of the woods. And when it got to the edge of the woods, it turned around and it walked away fast, but it did not run. It just turned around and it walked away. Now, I go back over to my buddies now, and I ain't kidding you. I'm scared to death. Because, I mean, in my mind, there's a crazy man out here in these woods with us boys. I mean, we're 3 15-year-old boys in the woods alone. So I go back, I tell my buddies, and they're like, yeah, whatever, Stewart. We believe you, buddy. Yeah, you're just trying to scare us. Tell us another one, you know. Boogeyman out there too, kind of thing, you know. So we go to bed. I got that little 22 rifle, buddy, and I don't sleep. I'm holding it like it was a pacifier. You know, I had it. Every little noise that was made, I was like, you know, I'm ready. 22, what was I going to do? Make it mad? But it's all I had. Next morning, I told them, I said, come on, we got to go over here. Come on. We went over to the well, you know, where we've been pumping that water. It was mud. Right there in the mud, now I wear a size 14 triple E. When I've worn that size since I was about 15, 16 years old. Always had big feet. I took my foot that was in a tennis shoe and stepped in the footprint. And the footprint from toe to heel was longer than my 14 triple E tennis shoe. Wider than my 14 triple E tennis shoe. So I stepped in it. And my buddies are like, so that's what you was over here all that time doing. You're making them fake tracks over here trying to scare us. And I'm sitting there and I shut up. I was getting picked on and ridiculed. I didn't say nothing to anybody. I just shut my mouth. But from that day on, I noticed things in the woods differently when I went. I started noticing that when I was squirrel hunting a lot of times in that same patch of woods, I would hear something walking, shadowing me as I was squirrel hunting. I would hear the squirrels start barking 40, 50 yards over here, even though I wasn't moving, and I could hear something moving up the creek. Thought it was a hog, thought it might have been, but later on in my life I learned to distinguish between 2-legged footsteps and 4-legged footsteps. The difference between squirrels scurrying and armadillos scurrying in the leaves to taking a step. And I started realizing that some of that stuff I was hearing when I was in the woods that was shadowing me and my movements was walking on 2 legs in this same patch of woods. So that was my first face-to-face and my first awakening moment after that these creatures were out there and these creatures were real. And this was before my mind was influenced by the computer. There were no computers out then. This was before social media, so I didn't get the influence of any social media. The only thing I could do was go get a book from the library, and you go back in. Well, what did you find? You found a few books on Yeti. You know, you go get you some Tom Slick or whatever his name was. You can get you some of that stuff. Whenever Jimmy Stewart was going over and smuggling back the papier-mâché hand bones and stuff like that, you know. And so that was all interesting, but there was nothing really written. And then, boy, I run across this thing, Patterson-Gimlin footage. How you doing? And I looked at it. And I said, well, that doesn't look really anything like I saw. But when it turned its head and looked at that camera, there was that nose. More hair than mine had, but now we're talking mountains of California. Probably colder up there than it gets in East Texas. So I don't know what the temperature was up in those mountains, but that nose on that footage, that nose, that's what stuck in my head, was that nose. I couldn't make out the facial features and things like that, but I could see that nose. And so that was my first and my other exciting moment there, but that was my first one. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Back to the DNA question, we've all heard the samples of non-human primates. You know anybody that's compared those samples to say, well, this is from the same creature?
I have asked that same question to both people that conducted studies, to Brian Sykes and to the one that I will remain nameless, that I don't get along with, a little guy from New York, little mohawk wearing turd. But both of them said no, they have never compared any of the samples to each other. So my question is, if you're a professional and you are comparing DNA samples, say me and you, we're looking at trying to find your cows and my cows. We got 400 different specimens of cow DNA. How do we tell whose cows are whose if we don't test your cow's DNA against my cow's DNA?
Yeah, I'm just like.
I'm being told I like to talk too much, and it's the truth. I do. I'm quite the vocal one. So I shall say thank you very much for withstanding and putting up with me this evening, and a big round of applause for our hosts this evening as we enjoy the rest of this weekend, because this is going to be blessed.
Thank you to our first ever speaker.